And I just, I never came to live. And the point with me was I always knew I could go home.
Mm-hmm.
But bit by bit by bit, I suddenly found I had created a life here, and I ended up sort of staying. But I wasn't supposed to be here for the first few years.
Yeah.
I didn't have the right colour papers.
And how'd your mother and father feel about you doing that, taking off and doing that?
My mother wasn't happy. My mother would like me to have stayed at home, married the boy next door, and gone to mass with her every morning of the week, and had 10 kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what she wanted.
Yeah.
Daddy missed me. He would never have stopped me, but I know he missed me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he wrote me wonderful letters. He was a great letter writer, and I have all those letters from him from the early days.
Is that how you pretty much kept in touch, was letters?
Yeah, because phone calling, I mean, I'm only going back 17 years, but it was very expensive to call at the time.
Yeah.
It was really expensive to call at the time, maybe close to $2 a minute or something.
Yeah.
So, do you remember those aerograms
Yes. Mm-hmm.
that you bought? They were prepaid. I mean, I used to write a ton of those, and I got a ton of them because, my life wasn't that busy in the early days, but it obviously got busier. Yeah, but I probably have a record for coming in and out of the country when I shouldn't have been doing it.
You made it, though. You made it in that.
Yeah, I did.
How did you meet your husband?
I was working for a chiropractor down in Southport, and I met him through him.
He was a patient?
No, he was a friend of the chiropractors.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when was that?
That would have been 1988, I suppose, as well.
And when did you get married?
About 6 years later.
Okay. Yeah.
I wasn't in a rush.
Yeah,
Well, I didn't know if I was coming or going at the time. I came and I went, and I came and I went. So I was very casual, really, in the early days.
Yeah. Is he's of Irish descent?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does he go back with you?
Sometimes, yeah. When I go home for the whole summer, like he'll come for a block of maybe 12 days or 2 weeks or 10 days or whatever during that time frame. But overall, it's a time for me to go home and kind of, just be with my own family and my own friends and not have to worry about bringing him somewhere or looking after him. Though mind you, in Kerry, he's carved out his own niche in terms of golf and stuff. But I like my own time at home. It's important to me. Yeah.
And what's Tim's last name?
Daly.
And you just made the decision right off that you were going to keep your maiden name.
I did.
Yeah, I like that.
My father liked that idea, actually. It was, my father's mother was never, ever, ever known by her married name. It was quite common down there in those days, and I see you nodding your head. Yeah. It still is, that you kept, my grandmother was Mary Ferreter until the day she died. If someone said Mary O'Sullivan, they would have had no clue who she was talking to. Who's Mary O'Sullivan?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Mary Ferreter.
Yeah.
Always. So he had no problem. And I always said, I was proud of him. I was proud to be his daughter, and I wanted to hold on to that name.
Yes.
Plus, there was enough Dailies around Fairfield anyway. They didn't need any more.
Was your mother a writer? Was your mother, a musician or anything?
No. Mother didn't have much time for it. Funnily enough, she did, like everybody in her, down there, have to learn the violin when she was a kid. But no. Not into the writing, not into... She did translate a few books, her background was economics, and she did translate a couple of student textbooks into Irish for the publishing company Folan's at home. But in terms of loving reading or writing, no. Yeah. Mom loved going to mass and praying. And
Is your mother still living?
No. Mom died in 95. Yeah, Mom hadn't been well for a while. She hadn't been well for a while, so, it was a blessing for her. It was, yeah.
And your dad, though, always kept he was still, even though he was ill with the Parkinson's, he still was someone you had, the intellect never went away.
It never left. He said a little while before he died, he said, I've had a long relationship with Dr. Parkinson. He says, we don't always get along with each other, but we're stuck with each other, so I do the best I can.
Yeah.
He used to watch the Pope all the time, and he took great comfort from watching the Pope and sort of encouragement in a sense. Yeah. But he stayed dignified right through his illness, completely. He was...
He and the Pope went just months apart, didn't
And
they?
the interesting thing is I have on the fridge at home in the house a picture of my dad with the Pope. He went as part of an Irish delegation a number of years ago, and it was a Kerry delegation. There was about 100 people, but they did manage with that 100 people to be part of a smaller audience with them. And there's a lovely picture of the Pope, and right behind him, just after shaking his hand, his daddy. Neither one of them has Parkinson's. And it's very poignant when you see it. Both of them tall and straight. And it's like, oh my goodness, look at that. Neither one of them with Parkinson's. Yeah. But he did. He bore it with extraordinary dignity. He really did. And very luckily, it didn't affect him intellectually. If you saw him, he looked like he was 197 years of age, you know. And it used to anger me when you'd see people treating him like he was.
Yeah.
You know, he may be old, but you know what? What you see on the outside is not what's on the inside.
Yeah.
Because he managed right through to the very end to maintain. And about just 2 days before he died, he said to Maura, he'd gone to the doctor and he was about to have cataract surgery. And he says, I feel like an old tree, he said, an old tree, and the leaves are falling off one by one.
He just thought poetically, didn't
he? He did.
Yeah.
He did. Yeah. And he was funny.
Yeah.
You know, he was a very witty man too.
Could you recite one of his poems in Irish and then just kind of give us, I know you can't give a literal, but tell us what it's about?
To be honest with you, I couldn't.
You couldn't?
No. I think I would find it a little bit hard to do it at the moment. It's
Yeah.
just a little bit raw, Peggy, if you don't mind.
Sure,
But
I
I don't know a lot of it off by heart, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of it off by heart, to be honest with you either. Yeah.
Was there ever a book of poetry put together?
No, just the novels.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
So you still
The
have all
poems
that
are kind of
to do.
scattered.
Yeah. Well, that'll be a job for you to do at some point.
Yeah, my sister's working and stuff
Is
at
she?
home. Yeah,
Yeah.
she is.
And is she
Yeah.
living in Dublin?
She is, yeah. She's
Yeah.
a nun.
Yeah.
But they gave her release, which is great, from her order for the last 10 years to actually live at home with him and take care of him.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, so he was able to stay in his own little house all the time, you know, which
Yeah.
was great. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was totally petted. He was the most, what's this they used to call him, you know, the most neglected man in Ireland. All these adoring women, you know.
All coming over.
Oh my, everybody loved him, you know.
Yeah.
He was just one of those people, everybody loved him.
Yeah.
And my sister's friends, all the nuns, they spoiled him rotten, you know. And he said one day, Maura, we went in, I remember last year on New Year's Eve, he was inside in the bed, and we had a special bed for him, like the bed you'd have in intensive care, you know, the ripples. The bed would nearly talk to you now. It did everything. And he made that bed look like a nest. And I remember going in on New Year's Eve last year to when he's inside the bed, the pillows are all propped up around the blanket, and, you know, the plate of food that he was eating in the night and his little whiskey and everything. And Maura stood back and she says, would you look at you lying there in the bed, she said, and anything you want. Not only is there one woman, but there's two women here ready to jump. We're nearly competing with each other to get it for you. And he sat in the bed, no teeth in his mouth, of course, and he didn't say anything for a minute. And then the two little eyes looked up at her and he says, the petting? It was thrust upon me. And Maura, we just started to laugh and said, you know, it's true. He was that kind of a person. He just, you know, everybody took to him.
Yeah.
You know, very endearing, sweet man. Yeah.
That's excellent. What did you miss most about being at home when you got here, and I guess you were really here for a few years, or were you still able to travel back and forth?
I managed to travel
managed
back
to-
and forth. Let's not go too much into
All
that,
right.
but let's just say I managed to travel back and forth a lot. I miss people.
The people.
Ireland is always there. It's people. Someone would say, you know, oh, my sister came over for a cup of coffee. Something as simple as that. And we do have a very close-knit family. Some of my closest friends at home are my first cousins.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a very, on my mother's side, actually, is the close cousins. There's a bunch of women and we're just great friends, you know.
So you've missed the calling in.
The immediate access to them, you know, and I know I can call and I know I can email, but just that being with them and
Yeah. Just sitting down.
yeah.
Yeah. Having the chat. Yeah. Spending the time.
Yeah.
What helped you to make the adjustment?
I think the fact that it happened slowly over time and I had a door open all the time where I could go home wherever I wanted. It wasn't like I had to be here. You know, when you think of emigration, there's two factors. You've got the push and the pull. Some people are forced out for economic reasons and then others go for adventure, and I would have come for adventure. So I always had the choice of going home. So I think that knowledge that I always call Ireland, like I feel like Scarlett O'Hara, Tara's always there. I can
Yes.
always go back to Tara.
Yeah.
And
And just have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you eventually become a citizen?
I did.
You did.
I did actually, and I must say I'm very glad I did it. I think it gave me a voice, and I would encourage anybody Irish here. I've had that conversation with a few people since, and especially in this last election, where people had very strong views.
Yes.
And people say, I wouldn't, I'm not going to take out citizenship. But it gives you a right to complain.
Yeah.
You've got a voice,
Yeah.
And I had gotten a 10-year visa, the Donnelly visa, and at the 10 years I had a choice of either giving it up, or not giving it up, renewing it, or going for citizenship. And I was aware that, given the job I'm teaching here in town, that I really should become a citizen for protection for down the road, legally, all kinds of reasons. So I did it, and I took it very lightly. I was a little concerned because of my background, but we got over that hurdle. When I went to Bridgeport for the ceremony, I was very, very, very moved in a way I didn't expect to be. There were 64 people in the room that day, and the judge started to talk about what America is today and who everybody here is. Everybody, basically, unless you have, Native American blood, has come from some other country.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what America is. And he said, in this room today, he says, there are people from 64 countries in the world here today. Some of you have never held a passport and have never had the right to vote in your own country. And so he painted that picture of America for what it is, people from all over the world, and how important it is. And I mean, I nearly get goosebumps when I think about it now. I was really very moved. And he spoke very eloquently. And at the end of it, he turned and he said to us, I'd like you to congratulate the person beside you in your native language. And to turn around and to hear this, and I felt so proud to be able to do it in Irish.
Yes.
But it was very funny because I had a kid from India beside me, and I thought he was going to say something in Hindi. He says, well, I guess it must be congratulations. So that was my funny story from the day. But to hear, it meant an awful lot to me, actually. And I've got dual citizenship.
Yes.
I've got both,
Yes.
which...
Who was the judge? Do you remember his name?
Tall man with grey hair, sorry. No.
Yeah.
Do you know the judges down
No,
there?
I just wondered.
I think it was an Eastern European name. No, I think, but it moved me far more than I thought it would.
That's a nice story. It really is, yeah. How did you get to the Gaelic Club, the Gaelic American Club?
Well, when I came here first, my friend Ger Hayes and I, Ger was the girl I came over to. We used to go into the old club down on the
Post Road?
On the Post Road. Yeah, and sort of that way, I don't have any strong memories of individual people, or just bit by bit sort of grew into it.
Yeah, you became much more involved when we moved here, though.
I did, yeah.
Anybody special that influenced you, got you more involved, or you just?
Not really, there isn't really anybody who stands out.
Okay.
Was
it like the music? What was the thing?
I suppose the music may have been part of it, but that was more from Blackrock Castle that I got to know people down there playing. And then Peggy O'Connor got me doing the radio stuff and that here. Yes. So it kind of, there was a number of people really, but no one in particular.
Okay, so
yeah.
Now you do the Sunday morning show.
Yeah.
At Fairfield University, is it?
There's 4 of us who do it,
Yes.
and I do one Sunday, so it's nice. It's just 2 hours once a month, and I get lots of free CDs,
yes.
which is nice.
And how long have you been doing that, Breda?
I've been doing that 7 or 8 or 9 years, Peggy, I'd say.
Oh, jeez. Doesn't seem possible, does it?
No, but it must be.
Yeah.
It must be. Yeah. 8 or 9 years, I'd say, yeah.
And now you're a member of the Feile board. So
yes.
Now you're getting into all the cultural things here. And
well, I was doing stuff for a while before that because, I absolutely love traditional Irish music, and I've been running some of the concerts. Yes. And I ran the social committee here a few years ago for a year. That was hard work.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but once you get involved in something, you really jump in and get involved in it, which is,
Well, I love anything to do with promoting Irish culture, language, music. I love doing it. Yeah.
You're keeping it alive, and that's so important to keep it alive. Yeah. Gee, we covered so many of them. how do you think your life here would have been different from if you decided to go back?
I often wonder that, actually. I often wonder that. Um, I don't know that I would be doing as much in terms of running concerts and stuff if I were at home. And one of the things I like about America in general, I find um, people are always ready to encourage you. One of the differences, you know, if you try doing stuff at home, there is still a bit of that, and I don't mean it in a really bad way, but there is still that little bit of begrudgery at home. You know, you do something at home and it's like, who does your one think she is? Look at her. You know, where was she born? And, you know, there's a little bit of that there. Whereas here, when you try taking something on board, I think you're more likely to get people to pat you on the back and say, good for you, go for it. And I like that. So I find definitely a lot of the things that I'm doing here in terms of, you know, the Feile board, doing the program on the radio, I don't think I'd be doing it at home. What my life would be like, I don't know.
Of course.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be pretty good as well, but I don't think I'd be doing the cultural stuff to the same degree.
It's interesting what you just said, that, you know, that's that little bit of begrudgery, but at the same time, I see um, that everybody has a party piece. Everybody has something that they do, and they're encouraged. And I've heard some people when I've been over singing a song that I have no ear at all, that I've gone woo, and yet the applause and good man, good song.
Singing a song is one thing, but stepping out of your box is something else.
Uh-huh.
Do you know what I mean? Where you might be sort of pigeonholed in a way, or it's subtle. It's subtle. It's subtle, and it probably has changed a lot in recent years. I think there's a whole new generation of very self-confident young people growing up, and they just don't have that attitude. But it was definitely there, and I think you might find it a little bit more in rural Ireland than you would, you know, in the city.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'd be doing some of the stuff that I'm doing.
Yeah. When you go back now, are you a Yank?
I wouldn't dare. They'd murder me.
Yeah. But they don't ever, because you go back often enough that you haven't gotten that little label put on you.
They're waiting for the chance to jump down my throat. It'll be a word. And you know, in the beginning, I used to be very self-conscious about, God, make sure you don't talk about the mail. Make sure you don't say, you know, what do we say here? Oregano.
Oregano.
At home we call it oregano.
Yeah.
Make sure you don't say basil, you know.
Yeah.
And now I'm at the point, you know what, I've been living there 17 years, get over it. I'm going to say some stuff. You know, I am going to say some stuff, and it happens. It happens. The thing they would get at me more, not so much about words would be, but if they hear an intonation. You know the way Americans speak English, they end sentences on that rising intonation.
Yes, yeah.
You won't hear that at home. And if it slips in ever, aha, then I'll get it.
And do you go right back into speaking Irish when you're at home? It's as you get off the plane, it's...
Well, my sister and I would talk more English, but I have a cousin living in the house as well, and I would talk Irish with her when I'm in Kerry. Now, with Dad gone, we're going to have to make more of an effort to keep talking Irish, because it was just automatic that I would talk Irish to him.
Yeah.
So we'll have to make more of an effort. Yeah.
And will you still go to Kerry?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you still down in that area.
Yeah, we're scattering his ashes there this summer.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Very fair.
Yeah, out in the rocks where he just...
Where he wants us to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. Yeah. What do you think are the biggest changes you see in Ireland now since you've come here over the last 17 years?
Well, economically it has changed, you know, the Celtic tiger. And I do see a whole generation of young people who are raised very differently from us. They're young, they're confident, you know, they're not dominated by the church. They don't have the fear of God in them the way we did growing up. But the negative side of it is that it's made a lot of, I hate saying it, it's made a lot of Irish people very greedy, you know. A lot of money very quickly has not been good. The health system it's falling apart. I remember 4 or 5 years ago, my dad had to go into hospital, and after he did his stint in hospital, they moved him to an old folks' home up in St. Mary's in the Park, and it was just an automatic that they sent him there. It's a state hospital. Now, we had private insurance, but because of the doctor's care he'd been under in the matter, they said, look, we need him there for 3 weeks. And I'll never forget being in there and the place being totally understaffed, and old people in there calling out for nurses and nobody there to take care of them, you know. And I remember getting so upset, and I came out and I called a friend of mine. I said, if I hear the word Celtic Tiger again, then for the rest of this week I'm home. Whoever hears it is going to have to come up and visit this hospital. And you walk around that hospital and see those old, sad, lonely people in here, then decide whether you should be clapping yourself on the back for, you know, the great growth in the economy. People are forgetting those in need, and I don't like it.
And
I
that's the
don't
fastest
like it.
growing population, isn't it, in Ireland, the older people?
I'm not sure.
I think that is.
It may well be.
Yeah.
It may well be, but there's a lot of negative stuff that goes with that fast economic growth, and it's sad.
Yeah, yeah, it is sad. It really is. I think that one thing I notice about Irish people when we're talking about kids and the changes, of course, there's a lot of problems with drugs now that you never heard about.
Huge.
You hear about murders every day on the radio. I can remember, never heard. I mean, when you heard it, it was so unusual
Yeah.
to hear about somebody being murdered. It was usually in Dublin in a bad section.
Yeah.
It wasn't up in, Kerry or something. But I noticed that the attitude, at least in Kerry, where my family is, that children, like when they're born, are individuals. You're already an individual, and I might say to one of my cousins something about their son or something. I wouldn't know. He that's his life. It's a very independent feeling that it's almost like they pass through you, and they're there. You're there around them, but they are. And it doesn't have a whole lot to do with you, I mean,
Yeah.
did you see that at all?
To be honest with you, no. Not hugely. I mean, that may be more particular, to your sort of little neck of the woods, to your area. Not so much. Not so much. I haven't come across it all that much, no. But when you're talking about drugs and stuff, we used to grow up thinking about America and drugs and violence. Well, I'll tell you something. Dublin at night time, that teenage drinking mentality. It's frightening. It's frightening, and drugs is a huge problem.
But they're getting stricter now in Ireland about
They
that.
need to.
Yeah.
They need to.
Yeah. I remember a few years back they were talking about kids coming to school drunk.
Ouch.
Yeah. You never heard that kind of talk
No.
before either.
No.
What do you? Well, I think you already answered that. What you'd miss most if you went back to live in Ireland?
About here,
Yeah.
the weather.
The weather.
Yeah.
Really, the weather. Yeah. Yeah.
I love the climate here. I love definite seasons,
Yeah.
That's one thing I do not and will never miss about Ireland,